Rahgu Markus is the founder of the Mind Rolling podcast, and he is also the executive director of the Love Serve Remember Foundation. He's a very close and personal friend with the world-renowned spiritual teacher Ram Dass, and in this interview we have a beautiful discussion about what it was like to be so close to a highly revered spiritual teacher like Ram Dass. So if you would like to see more interviews like this one, then click the link right below me now to subscribe to Meditation Magazine.
He did not, there's not a delineated line, psychedelics, meditation. And meditation isn't the right word. Probably his pursuit of a map of consciousness is what led him from psychedelics to India. But that didn't mean he stopped taking psychedelic. Obviously nothing like he used to, but he certainly still engaged and experimented after he came back from India. Much less, but it was still there. So it was much more fluid, and his involvement had nothing to do either with just psychedelics or just meditative practices, or it had to do with a lot of things. It had to do with, of course, those things. It had to do with service, the development of working with dying people, working with compassion. All of these things went into a big stew. And that's why Ram Dass is really great, because he investigated so many different traditions, right? And so, everyone's got a little bit of a different penchant towards one thing or another that turns them on in terms of spiritual path, a practice. So the fact that he had experience in so many of them, was a great thing. And it allowed people to be able to enter into these different streams, whichever one appealed to them. So, but for him, in terms of his involvement, it was everything. It wasn't one thing or another. It was everything that, he wrote a book, Grist for the Mill, everything that's in front of you and that you are engaging with is spiritual path. And that was, a great teacher. So when he had the stroke in 97, 8, whenever it was, he had, of course, the gift taken away, his gift of, being able to put a large audience into a spellbound kind of trance, and get them totally conversant with some of these very complex teachings that he had assimilated in the East. And he was able to translate them into a Western idiom, which is why, people love Ram Dass. That's one of the main reasons that people love him. He puts it into plain English, and people are able to absorb it in a way that may be difficult if you just like are reading the Gita or something, or getting taught from, some wonderful Tibetan teachers, which there are many. So after the stroke, he more and more he became who he was. It's a little hard for me now. The was, right? It's like he's still here, and he is, just not in that body. Yeah, I used to say Ram Dass was pointing to the truth, and after the stroke, he really became more of the truth. It wasn't like he was, he never liked to be called a guru, because he knows, and we know, Neem Karoli Baba is a guru. He's a completely finished being. They call them siddhas. He's not living in any duality, which is why he blew our minds. You can imagine meeting somebody that you can't have that kind of, us them thing. There's you, I'm meeting you right now, and I don't know you really, you don't know me, but we're talking about something that kind of brings us together, but there's still, is duality. And if you can imagine somebody who wasn't in it, it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, and so Ram Dass was not uh, fully in that, but he was way more in it than most of us. Let's put it that way. I mean, his thing of loving awareness, which is his basic teaching the last few years, is a very powerful representation of what he was doing on a day-to-day basis. He was living that. He was, every person that came in contact with him, he embraced the way I told you he embraced me. And I don't mean physically, I mean with his vibration. That first day that I met him, nothing has changed all these years. And it's not like before the stroke he wasn't Ram Dass, he wasn't evolved, he was. But after, you know, and I don't know who could handle such a thing, almost dying of a stroke, and then living another 22, 3 years and teaching. And basically, you know, he was not caught up in the little me, mini me. You remember Mike Myers? Mini me. You know, we are all in our mini me's big time. And so he evolved out of his mini me, his Ram Dass-ness even. And it was a lovely thing to behold and be with him, which is, you know, why so many people in recent years, especially next generation, have, you know, navigated over to what he represents.